A couple. So I wrote down a couple. I think we talked about the grass is greener on the other side, and
Right.
that's a myth. Also, another one that kind of ties into that is focus on the big picture. And, for self-motivators like you and myself, we know that big picture is kind of the end goal, right? Like there's
Right.
going to be some mud and some challenges and some things you got to go through the valley, right, in order to get to the peak. We get that. But what I think a lot of new entrepreneurs don't understand is like the endurance, the grit, the dedication, like all of these things that are in between the big picture or the light at the end of the tunnel. And you've got to have some perseverance. You've got to have resilience. You have to have a lot of characteristics that are going to take you there. Because it's not an easy road. For some it is, but it's a very small percentage. And I think that's what messes
very small.
Social media messes us up, because you see these coaches posting like $1 million this, and here's my receipts and here's my testimonies. But it's not like that for everyone. It's probably a handful of people that hit it big. And those, truth be told, those individuals started long before us. Years, 7 years before us.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to do is I was doing some recent stats, and for people who are looking to move into starting their own business and potentially stepping out of the corporate world, these are the 2021 stats for the United States. So 4.4 million businesses were started in 2021, and 96% of them fail.
Wow.
And so, hello, everybody. My name is Nancy Michele, the founder of Impact and Influence, and I am really excited to chat with you today about the myths of following your passion. And with me today, I have a good friend and coach, Cherene Johnson, who the two of us have actually met through trying to follow our passion of coaching and recognize the challenges. And we thought we'd come together today, having both left the corporate world, to share with you some of our experiences, some of the myths that we see that are out there, but also knowing that for those of you who are really dedicated and persistent, that this is a possibility for you. So Cherene, please take a moment and just introduce yourself, share with everybody who you are, what makes Cherene so amazing.
Oh, wow. Hi, everyone. I am Cherene Johnson. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been here for about 15-ish years. So as Nancy mentioned, we both come from a corporate background. So by trade, I am an HR professional. So I specialize in leadership development, and I've been doing the leadership training and facilitating for over 20 years. I am a new entrepreneur, so just under 2 years, and I enjoy following my passion, which was a side hustle that I'm now turning into an actual brand. But I own a real estate investment company. It is called BSJ Enterprises, and so we have a pretty well-sized portfolio where I just do fix and flips. I do buy and holds. I find land, rental properties, renovations. So that's kind of the foundation of what I started just under 2 years ago.
Yeah, awesome. And Cherene and I actually met because we're trying to figure out, how do you promote your business? How, as entrepreneurs, do you get moving forward? And when you come from the corporate world, right, we end up with this perception, I think, that things are a little bit easier than it is, because the big corporation has been around for a long period of time. And so the challenges they have, and sometimes the challenges we have as entrepreneurs who are starting businesses, is like a massive challenge. So maybe let's start, because you mentioned side hustle.
Yes.
as one of those first things, right? You started your business as a side hustle. I started my business as a side hustle. And what is the thing that for you is the biggest challenge
Mhm.
being in the corporate world, right? Managing that part of your life and the side hustle portion.
That's a really good question. I think a few things going on there, and feel free to interject and jive
Yeah.
with me here. One, the balance, right? So balancing your 9 to 5 and then after hours working your side hustle. So that's always a challenge, especially when you have a lifestyle, right? Family, friends, if you are involved in extracurricular activities, you and I talked about fitness, right?
Yes.
When you start slicing into that time, it just gets thinner and thinner and thinner that of time that you can dedicate to your business. So that's a really, really big challenge in prioritizing that because self-care is very important. But as
Mhm.
a new entrepreneur, I soon realized my self-care was just like gone, completely out the window. I was using every single hour to work for corporate and then also try to build this baby from the ground up. So I know you can relate to that.
Yeah. And you have the see, I am not, I don't have children, so
Mhm.
I didn't have that additional burden. And it's not really even I don't want to say a burden, but
Yeah.
that additional challenge, right? And I think a lot of women, because especially as moms, right, there's such a pull and a draw to
Yeah.
your family. Your children are really young.
Right.
Um, in this process, how did you manage to balance that out? Like, how did you? Because
Mhm.
I didn't have that experience, but
I
it's
think
huge for women.
yeah, it is. And in that particular situation, so I have very small kids, a 1 year old and a 4 year old. So in the midst of me creating this brand and this business, I was also pregnant. I was also moody. I was also in pain, so experiencing all of those emotions. I don't think I balanced it well. I mean, of
Mhm.
course, emotions are high, and there were times where I was just plain out exhausted. And I think it's like a gift and a curse. My work ethic is insane. Like, I'm a freaking machine. And that's my problem. It's like, I got to do it. I got to take a course. I got to learn this. I got to learn that. And I never stop. And the result of that is the burnout, exhaustion. It's just moody, snappy, like even my husband was just asking for a little bit of time. Like, can we just watch this movie together? And I'm like, 2 hour movie? Hell no. Like I need, that's 2 hours. I could be writing a script or something. So I don't think I balanced it well. I think
Mhm.
now that I kind of removed myself from corporate, I'm able to balance it now, but doing the two was extremely challenging.
Mhm.
Um, so time is one of those things. I also want to touch on the word side hustle.
Right.
So it gets a bad rap, right? When you think of side hustle, you don't take people seriously. Your confidence isn't all the way there because you're still trying to
Mhm.
test it, seeing if this is really something you want to do. So you don't really want to tell a lot of people, right? You're still figuring it out. But at some point, it's like the side hustle is going to overcome, hopefully, the corporate, right? Because you want to just kind
Right.
of take off. That is a challenge because at what point do you actually start to tell people and promote yourself and feel good about it and feel like you have something solid? So that's like an ongoing thing for me, especially as I evolve. Um, I think that could be a challenge for some folks. The third,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I do you mind if I just add to that? So I found that hugely challenging, right? Because for me, I was an engineer and I started my side hustle in hypnosis, right? Which was like, oh my gosh, how do I tell
Yeah.
people that this engineer who's running multi-million dollar projects in the oil and gas industry is into this woo-woo idea of hypnosis, right? And all of this mind stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and gaining the confidence even for me to be able to say that what it was And even as I left the corporate world and said, I had started to talk to people, right? I had started to put things out on LinkedIn and even in social media, right? You have to be really careful.
Oh, yeah.
From a corporate perspective, if you're going to take on a side hustle, right? Like, do you
Mm-hmm.
need to have something signed with your corporation about what you start to communicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you show up on a platform like LinkedIn, which is, and so I think that's why I also chose Facebook and Instagram, because it was like a little kind of
More
safer to be
social.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was more social than corporate.
Mm-hmm.
And I could attract different people than who I worked with in the oil and gas industry.
Yes.
But it was getting myself into that mindset of, once I transitioned into being a communication coach, right, to be able to say
Mm-hmm.
that that's what I was, right? And stop saying that I was an engineer, that I was a project manager, that I worked in the oil and gas industry, and own
Mm-hmm.
that statement that I am a communication coach for leaders and speak from that perspective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a
Yeah.
perfect segue into my third point, because I was going to mention blending, right? Like, so,
Mm-hmm.
you have your profession and then you have this side passion, and at some point they're going to cross roads. So are you going to show up as all, or are you going to like remove one side and then start promoting the other? So I think that is the third challenge as any new entrepreneur starting off is, how are you going to show up? What platforms are you going to show up on? And for me, it was difficult because I'm a semi-private person. So if I'm posting my real estate projects, I did not want to come into work the next day and a colleague of mine is all up in my business. Like, you don't need to know where I live. You don't need to know how much I made off of this project. Like, that is private information that I don't want to share with colleagues. And that's just kind of my standpoint at the time, right? And I didn't know how to embrace or be open about that.
Right.
Also, to your point, really understanding your contracts with your company. So I worked in HR, and we didn't have NDAs, but we definitely had a working contract that said, anything you post about this company, we have the right to term you if it's inappropriate. You had to get permission to promote things. And I worked for the #1 global luxury car brand in the world. So of course I'm going to post a Mercedes when we have one in the showroom. Like, that's just what I want to do. But what I found was, okay, one day I'm posting like a Maybach in our showroom, and then the next day I'm posting real estate. It just was like confusing to people. Right?
Yeah.
So that is one thing I would say any entrepreneur needs to consider is, are you just going to blend the two? Are you going to separate the two? I chose to separate the two. But now I'm finding now that I don't have the corporate side anymore, you really probably should just come under one umbrella, because it's very difficult to manage two different messages, two different sites. And at the end of the day, people just like you, regardless of what setting you're in. So
exactly. Exactly. Right.
Embrace the change, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sense, but
yeah. So I think that's one of the big challenges that people don't talk about, right? They talk about, build yourself a side hustle. It's great. But it is a lot, right? And especially for a working mom. I think working moms already have like a massive challenge, an extra load on their day. And then when you add a side hustle on it, right, with this concept that, okay, I'm going to leave my corporate world to move into this, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of like challenges to that. So as we start to build this side hustle out, right, you and I started talking about how there's like all of these different myths and things out there, that messages that we got, right, that we want to kind of break down and help people understand. And one of them, I think, is really around this concept. Especially if you post on anywhere that you're starting to become a coach, right? You get inundated with these people who are like, oh, we're here to help you build your business, and you can get to 10K in
My gosh, yes.
10 days, 90 days, whatever craziness it
Guaranteed,
is.
all the buzzwords.
Right, guaranteed. We've got the plan, follow the plan, and you can do it. And you and I both know, having repeated this a couple times, this is as false can be.
Yep.
Right? And we have watched coaches after coaches after coaches take a lot of these programs, and like us, you learn some stuff, but you don't actually get to 10K in those first few days. So I'd love to hear your side to it, and then I'll add my 2 cents worth in on this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think business coaching is a hot topic. Honestly, I think it's the number one money generator for coaches right now, because it's serving a group of individuals, pretty much new entrepreneurs or established entrepreneurs who want to scale. So it's usually those 2 buckets. But these particular individuals need a solution, and they want it so bad, and they'll probably do anything to get it. So it doesn't matter if your program's 2K, 5K, 10K, people are going to pay it because they want to see the results. So business coaching in itself is just a moneymaker. What gets tricky is figuring out who you want to partner with, because not all coaches are created equal. We know that, right?
Yes.
Not all funnels are the same. And messaging, it's all about messaging. So it really doesn't even matter who you link up with. If your messaging is off and your audience is off, you will never, ever, ever see results, period. So it took me 4, I think, coaches to like finally realize that, especially you and I coming from corporate, we're talking naturally from a corporate standpoint. We're using words that aren't layman's terms. We're using professional terms, right? And so having to strip away all of that vocabulary is what you need to do when you start off. So I think it could take you a while, depending on which coach you hook up with, it can take you a while to kind of figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, one of the things is taking a look at kind of what I would call the credibility of the coach. And just even as you build your coaching business, that credibility is really key to you. And I would recommend finding that in a coach. And I don't mean just like looking and seeing that they've got some nice comments posted about how great they were, but really, are they living and breathing what they are saying, right? And so you and I came together with one coaching company. I've worked with another one where it was vastly different, even though both of them were strongly helping with from a Facebook ads standpoint, right? And that being a solution for both of us, right? And I think we both get hooked into these, oh, you can achieve this in like this short period of time and guaranteed. And what I would say for me, when I look at 2 of these different platforms, I chose one because it was cheaper and because it was doing more video work, which I personally love, right? And communication. So I thought, oh, that's a good fit for me.
Yes.
Versus the other one, which was more expensive, and was more kind of a side back process. But when I look at these different coaches, right, one of them, when I go back and I look at the content, when I go back and look at how that coach does their work, I'm like the one who provided me examples and showed me their own data, right? Like went like right in and said, here is my live Facebook. This is what's actually happening. This worked last week. It doesn't work this week, right? And was always on top of it. Versus one who I never ever saw the data. And when I thought about all of us who were with it, it's like, oh, they like none of us are succeeding. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing this same person use the methodology that they were teaching us to acquire clients. Right. And I thought there's some interesting perspectives there. But when you're looking for a coach, when you are trying to find one, right, it's choosing somebody, A, that you align with, and B, that's going to help you in that little area. Because as you build a business, right, as you start, especially in the coaching world, right,
Mm-hmm.
there are so many options out there. There are people talking about every different imaginable way to start your business, and finding credibility
Mm-hmm.
is really critical to finding somebody who's going to train you and coach you.
Yes.
And also be aware that you may have to go through a handful of coaches before you
Mm-hmm.
find the one that you connect with. And that costs you a lot of money and a
It
lot of
is
time.
big investment in time because I've gone through group coaching, I've gone through one-on-one coaching, I've gone through self-paced,
Mm-hmm.
um, completely hands-off coaching. And I will say too, to your point, it does take time, but really, to fast track the whole process, you need to understand what is your style of learning. And so for
Mm-hmm.
me being in the leadership training space, I use all different modalities. I do
Right.
in-person training, virtual training, I have it all. But what is Cherene like? And I've come to the conclusion that I need one-on-one, period.
Mm-hmm.
Group is great, but what I find is when there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, it still doesn't help me with my messaging. Like I need one-on-one coaching where I
Yeah.
can ask specific questions, get specific feedback, and
Mm-hmm.
also walk away with homework. And let's
Yeah.
talk about it the next time. So for me, I've come to the conclusion that I need one-on-one, which is going to be more pricey. And I would also prefer that one-on-one coaching to be somebody in the industry that I am in. So if I'm
Right.
in real estate, then I need to latch on with a mentor or a coach in that same arena because they're going to
Yes.
understand language.
Yes.
They know what types of terms I need to be using when I'm running ads or whatever I use to market.
Right.
So I do think that's extremely important as well. Hook up with someone that is in the same space. If it's woo
Mm.
woo, it's woo woo. If it's business coaching, it's business coaching. If it's corporate, business to business type stuff, hook up with those types of people because
Yes.
one coach can't do it all. Like there's no
Right.
way.
Yeah, I am with you. I have done enough group coaching and individual coaching to know that as much as I'm like a go-getter and you give me information, I can go forward. I'm with you. When I need my question asked, depending on the group, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing if it's like a few people and you really can learn from each other and it's a really, really tiny, tight group.
Mm-hmm.
But when the groups get really big, right, it can be a huge challenge to even get your question answered or something
Absolutely.
out there, right? And
Absolutely.
some of these coaches, right, run massive programs. I also prefer one on one. I actually like to do one on one as a coach because it
Mm-hmm.
means I can really dig in and help that person transform quicker, easier, get to where they are,
Mm-hmm.
where they want to go, as part of that process. And so
Yeah.
I agree with you. Find a coach who's doing what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
Who's doing your work. So recently, right, my coaches have been like, Nancy, you're talking about corporate leadership. Get yourself onto LinkedIn. Do all of your work there, right? Find people
Mm-hmm.
who will coach you in how to do those one-on-one sales calls with a corporation, which is very different than
Absolutely.
creating a Facebook ad and that whole representation there, or doing Instagram and those types of things. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I find that really, really valuable and really an impressive way. I love how you described that. What's
Yeah.
another myth that you
Yeah.
find from building
Yeah.
the
I
coaching business? Or
A
Hmm.
couple. So I wrote down a couple. I think we talked about the grass is greener on the other side, and um,
Right.
that's a myth. Also, another one that kind of ties into that is focus on the big picture. And,
Mm.
for self motivators like you and myself, we know that big picture is kind of the end goal, right? Like there's going
Right.
to be some mud and some challenges and some things you got to go through the valley, right, in order to get to the peak. We get that.
Hmm.
But what I think a lot of new entrepreneurs don't understand is like the endurance, the
Hmm.
grit, the
Hmm.
dedication, like all of these things that are in between the big picture or the
Yeah.
light at the end of the tunnel. And you've got to have some perseverance, you've got to have resilience, you have to have a lot of characteristics that are going to take you there. Um, because it's not an easy road. For some it is, but it's a very
Hmm.
small percentage. And I
Right.
think that's what
Very,
messes
very small.
social media messes us up because you see these coaches posting like $1 million this and I just here's my receipts and here's my testimonies. But it's not like that for everyone. It's probably a
Right.
handful of people that hit it big. And those, truth be told, those individuals started long before us. Years,
Exactly.
3 years,
Exactly.
7 years before us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I look at some of the big names that I really like and watch and I'm going to give a shout out to Evan Carmichael because I really like his. And Evan's like, okay, so here is how long it took me to build to 3 million YouTube followers. Can I
Mhm.
help you do it faster? Yeah, I've learned some
Mhm.
things. But he's like, this is the process, right? I started in 2000. I think he started in 2009, right? And like it took like 13 years where he's built to 3 million followers. And yes, are there like somebody who does something that magically creates that? But for most of us, it's a longer journey, right? You have to be in for that long game and you
Mhm.
have to get through the grind and the gruel, and you're going to
Mhm.
make a lot of mistakes, right?
Yes.
Like earlier you talked about um, needing to figure out your marketing and your
Mhm.
messaging, right? It's that takes multiple tries. It is very rare that that is a first time
Mhm.
go, and there are coaches who have been through it so they can share it, but be but recognize that they've actually done the work, right? They've
Yes.
spent
The
a lot of
research.
time and they've gone through the grit, right? Which then means that when you leave your corporate job, if you leave your corporate job to find this passion, right, you need to be prepared for the investment. You
Yes.
need to make sure that you've got enough money stocked away to cover your bills, to cover your
Say that again,
life.
sister.
Woo!
Say it
I'll tell you,
again,
I
sister.
there are days where I'm
Mhm.
like, oh gosh,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Right? And then you start to end up in this pattern of being afraid to get out there and communicate.
Mhm.
Um, and if you are not a marketing person, like I am not a marketing
Me
person,
neither.
like this
Me
is a
neither.
whole new world, right? There is a reason people go to school and take this, right, as a
Mhm.
profession and go study it because marketing your business, learning how to find the right words, using things like hooks and these types of
Mhm.
things to help you,
Headlines,
right?
call
And
to
and
action.
so right when you hear all of this, oh, I can leave my corporate job to go do a job that's only like X number of hours a week, right? It's like, I don't know, like 20 hours a week. I can have more free time. I can take my laptop and be on a beach and work from there. Yes, all of that is possible, but there's a long road to get to it, right? There's a
There is.
lot of grind. There's a lot of sleepless nights. There's a lot of tears going, right? That overcoming that mind.
Frustration.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
frustration.
it's okay. Yeah, and I think
Hmm.
that's the message and all of that. Like prepare, right? That's the
Yes.
biggest thing. Prepare for a possibly long road ahead. Financially prepare, mentally prepare. That's so key. I think as well too is knowing that your journey is your journey. So
Yes.
stop comparing. It's easy to say, oh, I'm not comparing. I'm just motivated by this person. Yeah, but then when you turn into a stalker and you're like looking at all their images and their posts, now it's not motivation. Like you're envious, and envious isn't terrible, but just understand their journey's their journey, your journey's your journey. And you have to embrace that. Like there was a time, I'll be honest with you, Black Friday last year, I overly prepared. I had a post for every 2 hours on Black Friday promoting an offer. I had it on clockwork, automation. I had all my captions and I got 0 sales. 0. And I cried. I am not going to lie. I said, what the freaking heck? Like,
yes, exactly.
Did everything.
Yeah.
And I followed a coach who told me, followed a coach who showed me their exact funnel, their strategy, and I did it exactly. And in that moment, that's when I realized it's not a cookie cutter thing. Right. That may have worked for that individual because that individual is in a different industry than me.
Exactly.
It's not going to be the same for real estate. Real estate's not a fast transaction. It's a longer process. Right. So I realized, it's okay. It's okay to get frustrated. It's okay to not see results. You've made it that far. Now you know how to do it again. And I took a break. I said, you know what? I'm not going to do anything for the rest of the year. And I needed to just replenish myself. And that happens in entrepreneurship.
Yeah. I was talking, I won't mention her name, but I was talking about another coach who this morning, who I'm excited is going to do one of these with us, right? And she's in this process of taking her break and regrouping, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to do that as a coach. There's times where you're like, okay, this isn't working. I need to step back, regroup. What is it that I'm trying to do, right? And for me, I had invested, I don't know how much money in Facebook ads, right? Mm-hmm. And trying that to get 0 results out of Facebook ads. And I finally had another coach, another big guy in the industry say, Nancy, you're trying to attract corporate people. Yes, those people are on Facebook, but you're going to get better connection through LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And what I have learned is actually it's not even advertising at all. It is literally going out into the community and making one-on-one connections. Now that COVID is lifted, right? We now have events going on that allow me to network. And all of my work is coming from actual physical interactions with people in networking events where we start casual conversations and they're like, oh, you could help me with this solution, right? And so because I'm doing corporate, it is more of that networking perspective. It is putting content on LinkedIn and that builds credibility and opportunity for people to see me. But for me, doing corporate training, doing corporate stuff, right? It's reaching out to people who are in your previous position, right? In HR, in the learning development thing. Hey, can we talk about how do you go about doing your coaching? How do you bring in coaches? What do you need, right? And so I literally had to do like a 180 and stop investing all of that and build the confidence to go, how do I create a sales pitch script of doing it live?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So
I still haven't mastered the live thing. I mean, here's another myth. I'm a corporate facilitator. I talk to 200 plus people all the time, right? For 20 years, teaching them things on stage, in person, virtually. But going live terrifies me, like for my own thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, how does that even make sense? Terrifies me. And it's
Well,
just,
Cherene,
I think I overthink it.
we'll do another side little video, and I'll hypnotize you and help you
Please.
overcome that terrifying. But it's interesting, right? You get really comfortable
Mm-hmm.
in one space, and from a corporate world, right? Often we get really comfortable in the role that we're in the
Yes.
what we're doing, and then we go to this other spot, and we're like, oh my gosh, what is it that I'm doing? How do I put it together? I remember doing my first live on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and it was I'm also a trained sommelier, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna play and do something fun, not with the intention of selling, but just do
Mm-hmm.
something fun. And so I would go live on Facebook, do these little wine videos about my wine recommendations, and I would click live, I would click done, and I would not watch it. I would just I'm going anywhere.
Oh my gosh.
Right, and I'm a communication coach. My goal is to teach people
I
how to
know.
communicate really well. So So it's interesting, right? Because we all have these little hurdles that we have to
Mm-hmm.
come through. And once I learned to do that, I like became very comfortable. And I'm glad I learned to do that before COVID and having
Mm-hmm.
to transition corporately my staff to an online
Mm-hmm.
platform and that type of thing. But it was just like, okay, here's the fear coming up. I still need to power through it. I need to get that
Mm-hmm.
mindset moving and changing. So maybe what are some of the other mindset issues that
Mm-hmm.
that you have struggled with, or maybe even still struggling with, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not a perfect game this process.
Yeah. I think mindset. So motivation has never been a thing for me. I
Mm,
am a self-starter. I'm a learner. I am a fan of YouTube University. So that's not an issue. I would say like internal fear, that's always going to be a thing for everyone. Like
right.
I overanalyze things to the point where I freeze.
Mhm.
Analysis paralysis, right? Like it's
Yes.
just the strategy, the way my mind thinks. I think so far in that I literally freeze. And then I just can't, I don't even know what to do next, you know? So
Right.
that's a part of me that I have to, peel back the layers and really use notebooks and like to-do lists. And my mind, I have to tell myself, like, focus, right?
Yeah.
So just focus, zoom in and focus. Stop trying to do everything. Um, Another thing I will say, and I've gotten so good at this, is um, really, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, appreciating my journey. And
Hmm.
so realizing that, yeah, I think I wrote this down. Where is it? 5 million people became millionaires in 2020. What?
Right.
And I was not one of them. However,
Yes.
even though I did all the things, right? I did all the
Hmm.
things to align up to that number, never quite hit the number. So appreciate those statistics,
Right.
appreciate, the people around you that are growing and
Hmm.
start putting yourself into those areas, start connecting and start building relationships
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, you're going to learn something new, but you might also get an opportunity you never got before. If you
Hmm.
and I, Nancy, weren't chatting in the chat room on Zoom in our coaching sessions, we wouldn't be on this
Right.
today, 6 months later, right? Doing this
Yeah.
together. So I think it's
Yeah.
really important your mindset has to be, focus and also expand your current level of understanding. Like
Hmm.
meet people, they might introduce you to something else. Be open-minded.
Right.
Um, all of that is helpful, especially as a new business owner. It's helpful.
Yeah, you need to surround yourself with people who are enthusiastic to support you in your game, who you can bounce ideas off of. I think one of the things that I love about the group of people that we did that coaching program with is that we've all kind of come together and we meet on an infrequent basis, but we meet every so often, right?
Mhm.
Without having need to pay each other for services, but just to share
Yeah.
insights, to be able to be like, hey, I'm trying this, it's working for me. This isn't working for me, right? Encouraging each
Mhm.
other, because it is a hard process when you're doing on your own, and it can be very lonely. And you can try sometimes to talk to your spouse about it, but they don't always
Yeah,
understand,
they
right?
don't.
They're just
Yeah.
they're trying to be supportive, but they don't understand what you're going through. They don't understand all the challenges and all the learning that you need to do on this process. And so it's interesting because every so often I'll say to my husband, so, I probably should go back to like full-time work, because as much as
Mhm.
I love this and I want this to be successful, right? I'm like, that safety net of having
Yeah.
like a constant income is really great.
Yes.
And he then says to me, I like the person who you've become
Aw.
on this journey. He's so lovely. He's really, really nice.
Yeah.
And it's like, you were so stressed in that corporate
Yes.
role
Yeah.
that this is a good fit for you. It's just taking you a long time, right? And be okay with that, because
Mhm.
it is. So you need people
Yeah.
who can be like your cheerleaders,
Yes.
because and sometimes going through the pain and the struggle
Yeah.
of that.
I
So
agree.
one of the oh,
I
sorry,
was
go ahead.
I was just gonna chime in on that. I do agree. Like, I don't think my husband fully understands because my, passion has evolved several times. It's always been in
Hmm.
real estate, but it's evolved with audience and what I want to teach and who I want to teach it to. But yeah, he gave me the same type of advice. He's like, I like this version of you. You're not stressed. You have your whole day to prioritize and plan accordingly. And he actually said, why don't you wait? Like, let's not promote any of this right now. How about let's just do something different? All of the projects you're working on, why don't you start filming that?
Hmm.
Why don't you start documenting and recording your process when you meet with architects, when you meet with land surveyors and freaking tree guys? Like, document that, because
Yeah,
now you have a story to show when you start promoting it. It's a
yeah,
day in life now, right? Like, you can
yeah.
actually see the process of what a real estate investor does and how they think and how they move. And so I thought
Hmm.
that was really wise of him to say, just stop. Like, stop buying courses, stop writing
Stop.
copy, just stop and
Yeah,
just focus on what you do. And now have a person document what you're doing and then just
yeah,
chop it up, use it for content later. That way
yeah.
you have something to work with. So it is important to have people in your corner that support you,
Hmm.
and can give you, wisdom and little gems like that.
Yes. Yeah, when you need it, right? Especially when you're like down and
Yep.
going, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm failing. Because
Yep.
half the time I feel like I'm failing. I'm like, I'm a really smart person. Why is it that I
I know.
cannot
I know.
this out, right? And so it is truly having that person in your corner, having someone there to boost you up. One last kind of topic before we kind of wrap up that I really wanted to chat about, and so we talked about this the other day when we were planning this, was this concept of why doesn't everybody want to be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Like, why doesn't? And so, because my goal, right, is to help corporations be happy places, let's take a moment and I want your
Mhm.
initial reaction to that thought, and then
Mhm.
what you've kind of discovered in
Yeah.
relation to that.
My initial reaction was why? Like, why wouldn't anyone want to be an entrepreneur? Like, why wouldn't you want to work for yourself? Why wouldn't you want to take the cap off of your earning potential? Why wouldn't you want
Hmm.
to have your time back, your freedom back? Why would you not want to wake up and plan the day you want it to be. Whether it's in meetings or not, it's your schedule. Why?
Right.
I could not wrap my brain around that. And then what I've discovered is that everyone can't be, right? Like we know that. You and I, Nancy, said, well, honestly, everyone can't be an entrepreneur because then the world would like not function because it's an ecosystem, right? Everything kind of like moves in an ecosystem. Consumers buy certain things that entrepreneurs sell, and it's just a cycle. But if everyone's selling something and no one's like purchasing because we're all self-sufficient, we wouldn't have a society, one.
Right.
But just even the personality, let's talk about that. Not everyone has the personality to be an entrepreneur, and that's fine. Not everyone is good at sales. Not everyone is a people person. Not everyone has a crazy idea. Not everyone's innovative or creative, right? So, and that's fine. Like everyone is different. And I think you have to embrace them. There are some people like, you know, baby boomers, my parents, they worked at the same job for 30 years, 20 plus years, retired, you know, they did that whole thing. That is not the case these days.
Right.
Like people are tapping out 2 years in, maybe 5 years. It's not the same. It's just things have changed, things have evolved. So I think there are people at every layer. There's someone who just wants to maintain a stability, right? They can keep the company afloat. They're stable. There's some people who want promotions and want to just climb the ladder. There's some people who want to be the CEO. There are some people who only want to work there for 6 months, get the experience, put it on their resume, and go somewhere better. Like everyone just has a different. Everything drives people differently. Right. I think. And that's a long way of saying that, but I've discovered that I'm not, not everyone thinks like me. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts?
So for me, what I recognize is that you're right. The ecosystem is really kind of key, and the ecosystem doesn't work. So as solopreneurs, which is what we are right at the moment, we are individuals. But often a lot of the things that we want to buy, a lot of the businesses need teams of people to achieve them, right? Like even if we think of people like Elon Musk, right? He can have the idea and be the entrepreneur to lead that company. But if he didn't have a team of people who were rocket scientists and engineers and somebody doing the videotaping and all of the things that he's doing, he would never get the rocket off the ground.
That's a good point.
Right. And so we need to recognize that the bulk of the population actually needs to work in a team perspective, needs to work in an environment. And I hope that at some point, you and I and all of our friends who've been starting this process get to a stage where we are a team of people, not just a solo person. Right. And to do that, right, that means we have somebody who's our accountant on our team, who's our lawyer on our team. And while those people may be individuals, right, you may have somebody who you now have a full-time person who does your schedules and sets up your meetings and creates all of the social media stuff that I don't want to do because my goal really is to teach and coach. Right. And so even as coaches, right, we are actually building a business and we want to find people on our team who play well at the things that we don't do well at.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there are very few kind of solopreneurs. There are a decent amount of entrepreneurs, right, who start companies, and depending on the size of the company. But if we're going to be really successful business people and we're going to be really successful entrepreneurs, you need to recognize that you're going to need a team of people. So if everybody in the world chose to be an entrepreneur, we would not be doing great things. Like Apple would not, and my iPhone would not exist,
Mm-hmm.
right? If only one person was an entrepreneur doing it in solo by themselves. If Steve Jobs stayed in his garage and just played with his own computer, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be able to be the mass success that it is. So
That's a really
I
good
do
point.
believe that, yes, there is a place for solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. And like you said, right, you need to be somebody of a really specific personality type. You
Mm-hmm.
need to have that grit. You need to have that persistence. You
Mm-hmm.
need to have that vision and be able to communicate it broadly to people to jump on board and support you so that you can have that impact and influence. And even if that is you're the person who wants to pull all the recycling out of the ocean, right? You
Yeah.
may be able to come up with a contraption of yourself, but if you really want to have big impact, you need a team of people to be with you on that journey. And so and I am grateful for people who don't want to be the boss in charge, but want to be that expert to help me
Mm-hmm.
where I am not strong.
Oh, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah, you can't do it all. There definitely has to be support people at all levels, and everyone has their area of expertise, you know? So I totally 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah. So I am so grateful for this opportunity. One thing that I do want to do is I was doing some recent stats, and for people who are looking to move into starting their own business and potentially stepping out of the corporate world, these are the 2021 stats for the United States. So 4.4 million businesses were started in 2021, and
Mm.
96% of them fail.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
it's like a huge number, right? And they fail often because we leave the corporate world thinking it's that concept, the grass is always greener on the other side, and not realizing the effort that it takes to build a business, to be
Mm.
in it for the long haul. And so if you are wanting to leave the corporate world and see this aha, that it's like, yeah, they're moving into this corporate space will be great. It'll be easy. I'm going to make this much money like that in a short period of time. Be very aware about what you're stepping into. Be very aware. Do a lot of research.
Mm.
Spend a lot of time checking to see, are there people out there who want the service that you provide,
Yes.
right? Do the research. Spend the time up front doing that research and prepare yourself both mentally and financially for where you're going to go, because um, it's a there's a big failure rate, even though there are a lot of people who
Mm-hmm.
start businesses. And it's not to say that you can't be successful. I would love for you to step out and start a business. We just wanted to break through some of the noise of all of the, yeah, you can be up and running in a few short days or weeks, and
Mm-hmm.
making hundreds of thousands of dollars in your first year, because there are people that do it, but they are in that really, really tiny
Yeah.
percentage of
Mm-hmm.
people. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else that you want to share?
No, nothing on the topic. I would just encourage all, first time entrepreneurs, newly starting out, just to keep your head on your shoulders, and really just find the balance. I think that's always a moving target, but definitely take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of your business. So find the balance between the corporate and your side passion. And then whenever you go full time with your side passion, still find the balance, So that's kind of the key in everything. And your journey is your journey. So embrace it.
Yeah.
So embrace it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you, Cherene, for joining me today. This was such a great conversation.
Yes.
I am so grateful to have met you and and watch you on your journey and work through these different challenges with you. Like I said, everybody, find friends who are in this business who are there to support you and motivate you when you are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
If you are interested in learning more about real estate and investing in real estate and doing this potentially as a side hustle to your corporate career or eventually stepping into it, Cherene is a wealth of great information. I will gladly post all of her links and how you can find her in the show notes below. If you are interested in improving your communication skills, because it is the number one key to success in business and the corporate world, then click the link below and message me. We can talk about the different ways that I can help you in your business, whether it be through a course or whether it be through one-on-one coaching, which, as you heard Cherene and I say, that is actually our preferred private method. As well, if you would like some live coaching in the area of working through corporate challenges, then click the link below. I have an impact and influence. Some of these shows are actually me coaching people and answering questions, and I am glad to offer that to you and help you. So click the link below. I would love to have you join me on this show. And next session that is coming up, I have another really incredible coach, Juliana. She is currently in Germany, but she specializes in your presence, both from a mindset standpoint and through how you dress, so that you can show up amazingly on social media to promote your ideas, to promote what you do. And your presence really says a lot about who you are and helps create that relation and connection. So I look forward to that conversation with her next week. Thank you very much and have a great day. Cheers.
Cheers.